Hey everyone, before we dive into this story, don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more compelling tales like this one. In my parents' dining room, the chandeliers bathed the heirloom mahogany table, passed down through 3 generations in a soft, inviting light. The crystal glassware sparkled, scattering delicate rainbows across the pristine white tablecloth my mother had meticulously ironed for hours. The setting could have graced the pages of a high-end magazine showcasing sophisticated holiday gatherings, a perfect reflection of the polished image my parents tirelessly cultivated. This Christmas dinner was meant to be a joyful reunion, the first time in 2 years our entire family was together. Around the table sat my parents, my older brother Marcus with his wife Jennifer, my younger sister Ashley and her fiancé David, and me. The spread was a feast of tradition. Honey-glazed ham, golden roasted turkey, creamy mashed potatoes made with real butter, green bean casserole, and my mother's renowned cranberry sauce, a 3-day labor of love. Yet, beneath the festive cheer, a simmering tension lingered, one that had been growing for months. Ever since I revealed my decision to switch careers, my family had acted as though I'd betrayed their deeply held expectations. "Elena, would you mind passing the gravy?" my mother asked, her voice tinged with that familiar tightness I'd come to know, a sign she was holding back frustration while keeping up appearances. I passed her the crystal gravy boat, a cherished piece from her family's wedding china, and watched as she carefully drizzled the rich sauce over her mashed potatoes. Her every move was deliberate, composed, projecting the image of a woman whose life was flawlessly ordered. "So," my father began, placing his wine glass down with a purposeful clink, "I think it's time we talk about the elephant in the room." The chatter around the table hushed. Marcus and Jennifer shared a quick glance. Ashley's hand slipped under the table to find David's. My mother's jaw tightened ever so slightly. "What elephant, Dad?" I asked, though a sinking feeling told me I already knew what was coming. Robert Castellanos had built his name and wealth on being forthright and resolute. From a modest construction business 30 years ago, he'd grown it into one of the region's top commercial development companies. He had no patience for subtlety when he believed a hard truth needed airing. "Your choice to throw away everything we've built for you," he said, his voice sharp with the authority that had cowed rivals and family alike for decades. Abandoning a solid career in corporate law to pursue some fanciful nonprofit dream. I set my fork down gently, striving to keep my calm. "I didn't abandon anything, Dad. I chose a career that reflects my values and passions." "Values?" Marcus snorted from across the table. The golden child, Harvard MBA, thriving investment banker, married to the daughter of another prominent family. Marcus had followed my parents' blueprint to the letter and couldn't fathom why I'd stray. "Since when is financial recklessness a value?" "Elena, sweetheart," my mother interjected, her voice laced with that sugary tone she used before delivering a sharp jab. "We've indulged your little volunteering stint, but isn't it time to think practically about your future?" "Little volunteering stint," I echoed, my patience fraying despite my best efforts. "Working for that legal aid group," Ashley added, always quick to align with whatever earned our parents' approval. "It's sweet that you want to help people, but you can't build a life on that kind of income." My younger sister, set on a safe marketing career and planning an extravagant wedding, mirrored our parents' priorities. "Actually," I said, "I'm not with the legal aid group anymore." The table went silent. This was news to them all. "What do you mean?" my father asked, suspicion creeping into his tone. I took a sip of the fine Cabernet my father had chosen from his prized collection and smiled. "I mean, 3 months ago, I founded my own firm, Castellanos Legal Advocacy. We focus on civil rights and social justice cases." The reaction was instant and heated. "You started your own firm," my mother gasped. "Without consulting us, without seeking our advice, you used our family name?" Marcus demanded. "For some bleeding heart legal venture?" "Elena, this is the kind of rash decision we've been worried about," Ashley said, shaking her head disapprovingly. My father's face flushed a worrying shade of red. "You had no right to use the Castellanos name for your amateur practice. Our family has a reputation, and I won't let you tarnish it with your misguided activism." "Misguided activism?" I repeated, my composure starting to crack. "Is that what you call standing up for people's rights?" I call it naive idealism that'll ruin any chance of a real legal career, my father shot back. Do you realize how much I've invested in your education and opportunities? Law school, internships, connections, all wasted so you can play hero to people who can't pay their bills. Jennifer, usually silent in family disputes, cleared her throat. Maybe Elena just needs to get this out of her system. She could return to corporate law later. There won't be a later, my father declared. Not if she keeps this up. Elena, I'm giving you one chance to end this nonsense. Shut down this so-called firm, apologize to Morrison and Associates for leaving abruptly, and we'll act like this never happened. I stared at him, stunned. You want me to close my firm and go back to defending corporate interests? I want you to grow up and honor your responsibilities to this family, he replied icily. And if I don't? My father leaned back, his expression hardening into the one that had intimidated countless business foes. Then you're cut off. No more family money, no trust fund, no safety net. You want to play social justice warrior? Do it without our support. The silence was suffocating. Marcus and Ashley exchanged smug looks, likely pleased since they'd always envied my slightly larger trust fund, a perk of being the first grandchild. Robert, my mother said softly, though her tone backed his ultimatum. Isn't that a bit harsh? Not at all, he replied. Elena needs to learn actions have consequences. If she rejects what this family stands for, she can do it without our wealth. Marcus grinned openly. Maybe this'll teach her some financial sense. Ashley nodded eagerly. She can't possibly make a living with her little nonprofit firm. She'll come around soon enough. I looked at my family, the people meant to love me unconditionally, and felt a cold resolve settle in my chest. They weren't just disagreeing with my choices. They were trying to force me back into their mold. Well, my father pressed, what's it going to be? Are you ready to act like an adult, or do I call my lawyer tomorrow? I sipped my wine calmly and smiled. Check your bank account, Dad. He blinked, caught off guard. What? Your bank account, I repeated. Check the balance. His expression shifted to irritation. Elena, this isn't the time for games. I'm not playing, I said evenly. Check the main operating account for Castellanos Development. Something in my voice convinced him. He pulled out his phone, annoyance clear as the family watched, likely expecting some minor issue. Instead, his face drained of color. That's impossible, he whispered, staring at the screen. What's impossible? Marcus demanded, leaning over. My father showed the phone to my mother, whose sharp gasp echoed across the table. The account balance is 0, she said, barely audible. What do you mean, 0? Ashley's voice rose in panic. I set down my glass and smiled at their stunned faces. Exactly what I said. The main operating account for Castellanos Development, your working capital, payroll, and operational funds, now has a balance of 0. Chaos erupted. Marcus grabbed the phone. Ashley fired off frantic questions. Jennifer suggested calling the bank for fraud, and my father checked other accounts, his face growing paler with each screen. Elena, my mother said, her voice taut with panic. What have you done? Nothing illegal, I assured her. I used the financial power of attorney Dad gave me 6 months ago during his heart attack. The memory of that harrowing week in March flooded back. My father had been rushed to the hospital, initially feared to have had a massive heart attack. While he was unconscious in the ICU, my mother was overwhelmed managing his care and urgent business decisions. I'd taken leave from Morrison and Associates, working 18-hour days to keep Castellanos Development running, coordinating with managers, addressing client concerns, and making critical financial calls. When my father recovered enough to handle legal matters, he'd given me power of attorney over the business accounts. Just in case something like this happens again, he'd said, I need someone I trust to keep the company going. You gave her power of attorney? Marcus roared, turning on our father. Why not me? You were in London closing a merger, my father replied weakly. Elena kept everything together. She earned my trust. Earned it so she could steal from us. Ashley shrieked. I didn't steal, I said firmly. Every transaction was legal, within the authority Dad gave me. Then where's our money? My mother demanded. I opened a document on my phone, one I'd prepared for months. The funds have been reallocated per a financial restructuring plan I executed over recent weeks. I handed my phone to my father, showing a detailed spreadsheet. 40% went to a trust fund for displaced workers, families who lost homes when Castellanos Development built luxury condos. My mother clutched her throat. You gave our money to strangers? 25% went to legal aid organizations helping those who can't afford representation, I continued. 15% is for environmental restoration in communities harmed by our construction practices. 10% established the Castellanos Social Justice Fellowship for young public interest lawyers. The final 10% funds the expansion of Castellanos legal advocacy. The silence was deafening, broken only by the ticking of the grandfather clock and distant street sounds. You stole everything, Marcus finally said. You gave our fortune to your pet causes. I redirected resources that fueled systemic inequality, I corrected. Castellanos Development profited by displacing families and harming communities. I ensured some of those profits helped those we hurt. You destroyed us, Ashley whispered, tears streaming down her face. How could you do this to your family? I looked at my sister, who just cheered the idea of my disinheritance, and felt both sorrow and resolve. How? Because 6 months ago, when Dad was in that hospital bed, I saw our wealth was built on exploitation. Every luxury condo displaced families. Every development cost communities their green spaces. I gestured to the opulent dining room. This was funded by making others' lives worse. I couldn't be part of that anymore. My father stared at the spreadsheet, his face ashen but thoughtful. Elena, some of these, like the Displaced Worker Trust and Environmental Fund, address problems our company caused. Exactly, I said. I researched every major project from the past decade, calculated the social and environmental toll, and allocated funds to repair the damage. But you've bankrupted us, my mother said, her voice hollow. I've liquidated the cash reserves, I corrected. The company still holds valuable real estate and contracts. It's not bankrupt, it just can't operate as it did. I showed another document. I've also drafted a business plan to shift Castellanos Development towards sustainable practices. Affordable housing, eco-friendly construction, and community partnerships that uplift rather than displace. Marcus shook his head. You're delusional. You threw away a fortune we could have lived on forever. We were already set for life, I said. The question is whether we wanted that security at the cost of others' rights. David, Ashley's fiancé, spoke up, pale and shaken. Ashley, maybe we should delay the wedding if your family's finances are shaky. We're not shaky, Ashley snapped. Elena just moved money around. Dad will fix this. But my father, still studying the spreadsheet, looked thoughtful, not angry. This trust fund for displaced workers, how does it function? It offers housing assistance, job training, and small business loans for families displaced by development, I explained. The environmental restoration includes soil cleanup, tree planting, and community gardens where we destroyed natural spaces, plus renewable energy for low-income housing. He was quiet, then looked at me with something like pride mixed with regret. How long have you been planning this? Since you gave me power of attorney, I admitted. I researched our company's impact and saw a chance to use our wealth for good. You orchestrated this whole confrontation, my mother accused. You knew we'd pressure you about your career. I hoped you'd be proud I was using my law degree to help people, I said honestly. But when you threatened to disinherit me for choosing justice over profit, it was the perfect moment to show your money doesn't control me. The rest of the dinner blurred with shocked discussions, angry accusations, and slow acceptance. Marcus and Ashley stayed furious, seeing my actions as betrayal. My mother wavered between horror at the loss and reluctant respect for my audacity. But my father surprised me. As the evening ended and guests gathered their coats, he pulled me aside in his study. Elena, he said, settling into his leather chair. Did you mean to destroy our financial security? No, Dad, I replied. I wanted to transform it into something I could be proud of. He nodded. This sustainable business plan. How detailed is it? I showed him my 64-page proposal on my tablet. Market analysis, financial projections, case studies, and community partnerships. He spent an hour reviewing it, asking sharp, analytical questions, the kind he'd always use for business ventures. This could work, he said, amazed. Lower margins at first, but the sustainability and goodwill could make it more profitable long term. That's what my research shows, I agreed. And you did this while managing your legal career and starting your firm? With help from consultants, urban planners, environmental scientists, community organizers, I said. He studied me. What you did, redistributing our money without permission, was theft, you know. It was redirecting wealth gained through harmful practices, I countered. I had legal authority. Ethically, I was fixing damage our business caused. Or, he said, it's your father's daughter using the education he gave her to fight for justice instead of perpetuating harm. We sat in silence. Then he smiled genuinely. Your mother will need time to adjust. Marcus and Ashley may never forgive you. But what you did took more courage than anything I've done in business. I built wealth by outsmarting competitors. You're building something better. 3 months later, my father called unexpectedly. Elena, I've been thinking about your business plan. I want to implement it, transition Castiano's development to sustainable practices. Will you work with me? I was in my new office, a modest space in a building housing nonprofits, overlooking a community garden funded by my environmental restoration project. As a consultant? I asked. As a partner, he said. 50-50 ownership. You handle legal and community relations. I manage construction and business. We build developments that help communities. I considered it. What about Marcus, Ashley, and Mom? Marcus started his own investment firm. He's thriving without family money. Ashley postponed her wedding, but is considering urban planning school. And your mother, he chuckled, is now the Displaced Worker Trust top fundraiser, charming donations from the wealthy. 6 months after that Christmas, I stood in the lobby of the first affordable housing complex by the rebranded Castellanos Community Development. Energy efficient and surrounded by green spaces, it was designed with input from its future residents. My father, beside me, looked prouder than ever. I spent 30 years building a company that profited by harming others, he said. Building something that improves lives feels better. The entrance plaque read, Castellanos Community Gardens Apartments, built in partnership with the Morrison Street Neighborhood Association, dedicated to the principle that everyone deserves a safe, affordable home in a thriving community. It wasn't the inheritance my family envisioned, but it was the legacy I was proud to shape.